The what machine?
The propaganda machine.
Has been
heavy since the Civil War.
Okay.
I mean, and the most notorious form of propaganda in this country is World War II.
How so?
Buy bonds, sell gold, support the war. Yes, we were fighting Nazis and trying to end shit, but we were trying to tell people to do shit that they didn't need to have to do. We were destituting our own people to support warfare. I mean, also look at the propaganda that we were spitting out during the Depression. Because during that time, the Depression, there was still plenty of money to go around. Just didn't want to let it go. Sound familiar?
I mean, yeah.
And when you have less than 5,000 people in this world who have enough money to solve all the world's problems and still be billionaires, you've got a fucking problem.
Oh, I definitely agree with you there. I think that the existence of billionaires is... We don't need billionaires. I think that once you reach $1 billion, you should get a certificate saying, wait, yeah, I won capitalism. And then the rest of your money should go towards helping the people.
And being a billionaire just proves that you didn't actually earn your money. You didn't work hard and just put yourself on the grindstone every day and earn your money. Because the everyday person, everyday human, doing the 9 to 5 and things like that can never achieve to be a billionaire. Hell, we will never see being a millionaire.
Well, maybe not the average Joe as far as like working in a warehouse, but I can think of one person who I would say earned her billion.
And probably had to bunk the system to do it.
Taylor Swift.
And she had to bunk the system to do it. I'm sure she found tax loopholes and credits and all kinds of other shit. She took advantage of the system to make her billions. And also, a lot of her shit was sponsorships. Another thing about corporate handouts. A sponsorship is just a corporate handout. Let us put this little ad right here so people will buy our stuff. Hey!
I don't know, I think you're going to get the Swifties after us.
And if they come after us, they're just blind to facts. They belong to a cult.
The Taylor Swift cult?
Yeah.
You think Taylor Swift runs a cult?
I don't think she personally does, but all the followers are cults. If your followers resort to trying to cancel people or trying to cause harm to people because somebody said something negative about your idol, you're in a cult. Case in point, MAGA. Maggots are in a cult. And if you don't do anything to dispel that violence, to say, hey, stop that. That's not the behavior I want. And you condemn those that doing it, you're in a cult. And you're benefiting from it.
Well, I think we're all hurting for the cult of MAGA right now.
We're hurting from the cult of consumerism. We've imprisoned ourselves in material things, or in social media, and other things that makes us dead in the head so that we forget that there are people out there that can walk all over this planet and not have to fucking even show a passport. They can hop on a plane and go to another country, land in that country, and their own private island, or wherever else it is, never have to touch customs. They might have to get a flight plan, but when they get down, if they go from the United States to fucking Italy, when they touch down, there's nobody there to be like, can you see your passport? No. They're greeted with champagne and fucking goddamn escargot and foie gras and all kinds of stupid bullshit. Oh, how was your trip? It was very lovely. Unfortunately, the bidet wasn't the right temperature. Oh, we'll get that taken care of right away. Yes, I need my butthole to be clean at a proper 84 degrees.
84 degrees. I don't know. I will personally say that when the bidet is not the right temperature in our bathroom, I get a little upset.
It doesn't have to be the right temperature. That bidet is there to do one thing: clean my asshole and give me a little shock.
Yeah, but I don't want it to be cold.
Yeah, and I don't need to be sitting here, just unleashing a torrent of fucking water on my butthole. I got shit to do.
I don't know. I, for one, want my butthole to not be freezing when I wash it in the bidet.
And you just sidetracked the conversation about something just to talk about buttholes. You sidetracked the conversation about imprisoned consumerism and propaganda just to get to a butthole.
To make a butthole joke, yes. But we can go back to imprisoned consumerism.
I mean, do I take advantage of all the technology and shit that we have every day? Absolutely. I love technology. I think it is one of the greatest things mankind's ever came up with. We do not use it properly. We shouldn't be using technology and AI to create social platforms so that some mouth-breathing knuckle dragger, neckbeard sitting in their parents' basement can go, I have the highest IQ ever, and I know what I'm talking about, and black people are not the same as white people. They are beneath us. No, Cletus, you got fucked in the head. You got hook, line, and sinker into believing that you are fucking somebody by somebody else who is laughing their ass off at you. Because when we have sitting members of our Congress and our House quoting Joseph fucking Goebbels or spreading information that is linked directly to Russian propaganda machines, we don't live in America anymore. This isn't the United States of America anymore.
I mean, yeah.
It's the land of the offended. It's the home of the lazy.
You think Americans are lazy?
Abso-fucking-lutely. And we're lazy because we're uneducated. And we're uneducated on purpose. It's not Americans' fault. It's not the citizens' fault. We've just, through watching countless hours of sitcoms and fucking sensationalization news and reading things that just make you not want to leave your house, to be afraid of everything and everywhere, to instantly make you go, I've got to have a gun because so-and-so might have one, not thinking about the fact that the people that they want to stereotype into this criminals and thugs and things like that were designed to be there to begin with. And there's no real way for them to get out. And then they have to romanticize, or the ones that never been in that life, romanticize the shit out of it and make money off of it, but don't do anything to bring those people out.
What do you mean that those people are designed to be there, or that, what?
So, poor people, and mainly people of color, and things like that, they have been, maybe designed's not the word, they have been designated to stay there by those who want them there.
Okay.
It's whiteness. It all comes back to whiteness. The problem with this world, the ultimate problem with this world, no matter what skin tone it has, is whiteness. White people are not the problem. Black people are not the problem. Hispanics, Latinos, Asians, the people are not the problem. Whiteness is the problem. That is the poison of this world. It's not weaponized empathy of the Western civilization. It's whiteness.
Okay. I'm not saying I disagree with you, but how is whiteness the problem?
Because whiteness is the status that allows you to get away with whatever the fuck you want to.
Rich whiteness.
True whiteness.
Okay.
And I haven't even started drinking, goddammit. I just poured this fucking bourbon.
You were just in a mood to rant, baby.
I'm always in a mood to rant. You just sometimes don't catch the right time to hit the record button. And you'll be like, so what was that you were saying again? Fuck, I can't backpedal now.
Because you speak truth a lot of times, but you also speak out of your ass. It just comes.
It's just observations I see in the world. Because also people don't realize that DEI and affirmative actions and things that they're trying to get rid of were put in place to ensure that the people who are actually qualified to do the job get fucking hired and not some good old boy that, well, I need a job. Well, this colored fellow over here, he's more qualified to do it, but we don't want him in our company. So we'll take Rufus over here, who, well, he only got half a brain, but damn it, we like the way he looks.
We just stupid. And just goes down to our essential tribalism as a fucking species. We like to separate people.
In tribalism, when we had our tribes, it wasn't because we looked different. It's because we were trying to protect our food sources, our territories, and things like that. It wasn't until they were introducing. Well, let me backtrack on that. Because religion definitely started the whole divide and conquer.
You think so?
I mean, before the missionaries went to Africa to start trying to convert the fucking Africans, all the Catholic Bibles and all the other Bibles stated that those of darker skin are only meant to be slaves. They had to take that part out because when they started teaching the Bible to the Africans, they were like, well, hang on, what's this? Why does it say someone of wool hair and bronze skin is only meant to be a fucking slave? Sorry, not bronze skin, antique bronze. Because antique bronze is a lot darker than bronze. Because we all know Jesus was a brother. But I guarantee you he had darker skin than fucking what we depict him as now.
Oh yeah, we have whitewashed the fuck out of Jesus to where now he's like blonde hair and blue eyed.
That picture that fucking everybody loves to kneel down to is Da Vinci's gay lover. They're worshipping a gay man, which is not surprising.
Where did you hear that it was Da Vinci's gay lover?
I'll have to look it up again. Oh, it wasn't Da Vinci. Sorry, I misspoke. It's Michelangelo.
Michelangelo's gay lover. Not much better. I mean, not that there's a problem with Michelangelo having a gay lover, but the fact that people worship him as Jesus, or his depiction as Jesus.
And some say it's Caesar Borgia, and others say it's Tommaso da Cavalieri.
Okay.
Caesar Borgia is what they think Leonardo da Vinci modeled it after. And Tommaso de Cavalieri is what Michelangelo based his depiction off of. Because apparently the image of Jesus has been reinterpreted for a while. Go figure.
Well, when you're trying to start, not really even start, when you're trying to use a religion to build an empire, it helps if you can model the central figure of that religion on someone who looks like the people you're trying to, win to your cause. Fight for your cause.
And I'm looking at Snopes right now. And it's actually got two answers.
Okay.
It's not saying that it's false, but it's not saying that it's true.
What's it saying?
It is just merely quoting what some had found that Michelangelo had directed his object of affection, his muse, his inspiration for letters, never responds, and various works of visual art. And then, of course, theologians, there's no actual substantial evidence to prove this. Of course they're gonna fucking say that.
Which is ironic.
Because they will also sit here and say that the applying more modern labels such as gay or homosexual to 16th century figures can be misleading. Did you not look into any kind of Renaissance art or anything like that? The Renaissance era was gay as fuck.
And homosexuals are not a 20th century development.
No, and I'm sure, positive that during those dark times, what were those called? The Dark Ages, any kind of expression of any kind of homosexuality was met with many, many stones. Because they will sit here and say, given the absence of any contemporary sources making this claim about Michelangelo, the sacrilegious idea that he would have used male object of his desire, whether it was acquired or consummated love, is debated as an actual model for the Savior, anachronistic and dubious.
Anachronistic and dubious, okay.
She also pointed out that Michelangelo's feelings for gay cavalieri were a private matter, not something he would publicly display, especially in a religious context where homosexuality was condemned by the church. No fucking doubt he wouldn't say it. But Michelangelo also wasn't really much fan of the church, considering they didn't want to pay him for painting the Sistine Chapel. And it was rumored that was one of the reasons, that's how he kind of stuck it to him. That's where this all came from. Is they had discovered the interactions and whatnot between Michelangelo and the church in their whole, painting of the Sistine Chapels, this, that, and the other. And because he was treated so poorly, you want a picture of Jesus? I'll give you a fucking picture of Jesus. And just know, my dick was in that ad.
I mean, it's also possible that we show ourselves through art in a way that to some degree can't be completely controlled, right? Like it's an artistic expression. You put your feelings and your emotions and your ideas and your everything into your art. So it's possible that he just started painting what was supposed to be a beautiful man and ended up painting, something that was representative of his lover.
And of course, you're not going to find any theologians or theologists, I shouldn't have said theologians, theologists, professors and whatnot of the cloth coming forward and be like, yeah, no, it's true. Because that would be blasphemous. And they would be excommunicated from the fucking church. How dare you speak of such atrocities, saying that the depiction that we have of Jesus is that of a gay lover.
I mean, they could, not that they will, but they could just be more honest about it and be like, yeah, Jesus wasn't fucking blue-haired. Jesus wasn't blonde-haired.
Well, he definitely wasn't a blue-haired motherfucker, I can tell you that.
Jesus wasn't blonde-haired and blue-eyed and...
And see, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed thing didn't come out until the fucking 20th century. It wasn't only until recently that the hair got blonder.
They could be honest and say that, yeah, he was... Jesus was a dark-skinned man.
Fucking white people would lose their fucking mind? You mean to tell me this whole time I've had a picture of a gay man on my wall? Yes, Ethel. You've been bowing down to a gay man. It up. You better fucking circus seal that shit and get the coming of Christ in you.
Which do you think would be worse to that group of people? The fact that they've been worshiping a gay man, or the fact that, the real Jesus is of dark skin?
I mean, if you really want to break down Jesus, if we're going to believe this whole fucking virgin birth,
which you and I do not believe.
Which we do not believe. But if Jesus never had any kind of testosterone influence, Jesus was trans.
So I understand what you're saying, but break it down.
Now, scientifically, it is actually possible for a woman to give birth without having male influence. French scientists have done it. They have taken samples from a woman's blood, created an embryo from it, and then introduced as an egg. Now, every woman has low levels of testosterone and high levels of estrogen. Now, it could very, it is possible. Let me retract. It is possible for this to happen and still give birth to a male. But
how is that possible? You need the sperm to get the Y chromosome.
Well, you and I both know that it's just not simply XYXX. It's a spectrum.
Yes, but to get...
Because there are some women who their second X has a very, very, very short leg. And there are some women who are born with XY chromosomes.
But you need a male to get the Y to make it a genetic male. We're going to say,
So the likelihood of Jesus being a male when born, if he's that of a virgin birth, is basically next to zero. But then you would have to then say that God is a male, which is bullshit. God's neither. It's not human. God would not have XY chromosomes.
Well, the religious among us, and let's just be clear here, you and I are both atheists, but the religious among us would just say that it's like God's magic. Like God magically
God, here we go again. God's fucking magic. God's magic has failed humanity because they refused to end evil. God has the power to destroy evil, to prevent evil, to undo all the shit that quote unquote the devil has done. Even though God has done more damage to humanity than the devil ever could. But God chooses not to, because God is a sadist. They choose to inflict pain on us so that we live in fear to serve. To quote one of the greatest lines ever, God is an absentee landlord. He's a sadist. He doesn't care about humanity at all. Because what kind of God can't see that the devil is tricking him? Especially when that God created the devil. And seeing as how God refuses to destroy evil,
what is it?
If you're trying to growl and tell me that something's coming that's godlike, fucking bring it. Because I got some choice words for fucking God, if they do exist. I got some hands too, because I'm throwing them. Let children get fucking raped. Piece of shit. Let God be real. I hope they are fucking real, because when I get there and I gotta stand in front of fucking St. Peter, I will fucking tear those gates down. I will burn heaven to the fucking ground. Lucifer will sit back and go, God damn, motherfucker.
It's that famous saying, and I don't know if who said this or where it comes from, but what's the difference between me and God? If I saw a child getting raped, or if I saw a child being hurt, I would step in, and just like that, I'm more moral than your God.
It's I think it was either Matt Dillahunty or Stephen Fry. Those are my two guesses.
They're good guesses. I'm a fan of both.
I think it was Matt Dillahunty during the debate that we saw that said, I have more morals than God, because I would never send bears to kill children for making fun of a man for being bald. Elijah and the bears. God is an abortionist too, because if Jesus was his only begotten son, he knew he was going to die, so therefore he killed him. He allowed his child to die. And if these fucking right-wingers want to believe that we're aborting kids, even at the point of birth, God's an abortionist. Even though in the Bible it says life doesn't begin until the first breath.
Yeah, but you and I both know that a lot of Christians don't actually read the Bible.
Yeah, it's obvious. We're they wouldn't fucking like interest rates, or they wouldn't fucking eat pork, they wouldn't wear mixed fabrics, they'd go to church on Saturday instead of Sunday, because Sunday is actually the sun god, Ra, Horus, who was born of a virgin birth, had 12 disciples, was baptized in the river by a fucking, I can't remember his name. Christianity is just a fucking repeat of other goddamn religions. So is fucking Islam. And speaking of Islam and fucking Judaism and all that shit, it's all the same God, but they don't want to fucking agree. They just have different prophets.
Or no prophet.
The Jews don't have a prophet.
Not yet. They're still waiting.
They do not recognize him as the Son of God.
They're still waiting for God's return.
They're waiting for God.
For God's return, yeah.
Yeah. They're not waiting for some dude that was strapped to a damn piece of wood that's not a boomerang to come back. And I don't know how many people out there have actually suffered a fucking gut wound, but when you get stabbed in the gut like Jesus did, and he got stabbed on the, what I remember, the right side where the liver is, you ain't coming back from that. Especially if your ass is put in a hole, not being tended to, for a weekend. And not even 3 days. You died on a Friday and came back Sunday morning. And you died Friday afternoon, Friday evening. So at most, you were dead a day and a half. Whereas Horus is said to believe to be dead 3 full days. Same with I think it is Nisha, who was, I believe, he was an Asian or Indonesian area version, basically, of Jesus. I'm sure somebody's going to correct me, which please do.
I mean, we don't know everything. We just have a lot of opinions.
I don't know all the facts, but I know just enough to pull for people to go down the rabbit holes. But then they'll be like, oh, well, I got all these sources here that say you're wrong. Okay, cool. All these religious texts and whatnot say I'm right. And if you all actually read the book and followed it, you would not be so quick to just sideline the poor.
No, because while not eating, pork and
all that shit,
wearing
Jesus
mixed fabric,
didn't give a fuck about that. What
Jesus came and made all that clean. But Jesus did care a lot about the fucking poor.
And Jesus did say, if you have 2 cows in your neighbors, do not give one of your cows to your neighbor. Jesus destroyed the market square because he saw that the Jews were overpricing and just completely making it so that the poor could not afford their wares because it said it was wrong. Jesus was a liberal, dark-skinned Jew. Bro, you can't sit here with a mostly white body and a black face and sit there and argue with me. Keep your racist comments to yourself. Oh, you got a hair, man. There's that other one.
For all you know, he was agreeing with you.
I don't speak talk. But Nita's probably just barking at some shit that's outside. Oh, now you want to come over here? What? Yeah, I gave you a kiss. Correction. Jesus was a liberal socialist, dark-skinned Jew.
Yeah, definitely was a socialist.
Because all you rich motherfuckers remember, a camel has a better chance of passing through the eye of a fucking needle than entering into the kingdom of heaven.
But the Joel Osteens of the world, forget that.
Fuck Joel Osteen and his closing his goddamn church during hurricanes and other natural disasters to fucking people that are trying to seek shelter. Fuck Joel Osteen. Fuck Lindsey Graham. I hope that motherfucker is rotting in hell. Fuck his son Franklin Graham. And fuck every other televangelist that's out there that's trying to fucking sell you shit to get praise for goddamn God and Jesus. Send in seed money so that you can be accepted into the kingdom of heaven. Where's that money going? so Tammy Faye can have bigger fucking hair. We need to change the name from Karens to Tammys.
There's a documentary that I really want to watch about Tammy Faye Baker.
Fuck Tammy Faye Baker. I hope that bitch is rotting in hell too. I want it. And see, the thing is the original idea of hell is just the absence of God, not being in God's presence. It wasn't until fucking the Catholic Church grabbed a hold of it and fucking decided that it was now a place of suffering and fire and ice and different levels and Dante's Inferno and Paradise Lost and all that other nonsense. Because God didn't cast Lucifer down into hell. He cast him to earth.
What makes you say that?
It's in the early writings.
I did not know that.
The whole God cast when the war in heaven was over and Michael stood gloriously over and triumphantly over Lucifer. God then, cast Lucifer down into hell where he was then enchained and spent the rest of eternity. There was no hell until the Catholics created. There was an underworld. There was a Hades. But that belonged to the Greeks and the Romans. The land of the dead belonged to the dead, not angels and demons.
You know that the Jewish people don't believe in hell?
Why would they?
It's not in their books.
And that should fucking tell you something, because the Old Testament is just the Torah.
Well, the Jewish also have other books, but yeah.
And if you want to look at the Abrahamic religions, the Jewish, the Christianity, and the Muslims, you have first edition, second edition, and third edition. The retelling of the same story with new downloadable content. That video I saw earlier where people say humanity in this creation is a saved file on the video game that God plays that he forgot about.
I think I saw that earlier.
And it may occasionally pop in just to put in new downloadable content. Doesn't actually pick the game back up. Just, ooh, downloadable content. Download it. You're going to continue playing and interacting with it? Oh, no. It's like buying the original Skyrim, not playing it, but then downloading all the other shit that comes with it and not doing anything with it. You've left everything that's in there to its own devices.
Yeah, if Skyrim became sentient.
And of course, what's it going to do? Sit there and go, hey, what the fuck? You forgot about us. What the fuck are we supposed to do? We got big scary shit happening here. We got dragons, dinosaurs, and all this other crazy shit happening. Oh, now you got this downloadable content that's fucking bringing meteorites and all this other shit? What the fuck? Oh, now you've introduced a virus, humanity, and it's fucking the whole system up. Because then you have to create more viruses to try to control it. This is probably why I should never, ever be given the power. The ability to bring whatever it is that I can imagine to life.
Really? Wow, what would you do with it?
Because I would determine whether or not the whole concept of God is true. And if it turns out to be true, I would drag them down here and demand that they be held responsible for their fucking actions.
Or lack of action.
Or lack of action. That's why I firmly believe that religion was created through drug use. A bunch of people either tripped on some really good shrooms or some other fucking shit that we didn't know about, even though hemlock was a thing. And we all know hemlock was a fucking poison, but they used to drink that shit all the time. It'd make you hallucinate some crazy shit and eventually kill you. Because how else are you going to explain that a man talked to a goddamn burning bush, thought he was talking to a god, and this man was a fucking known murderer? Moses murdered a man before he had his burning bush experience, where he led his people for 40 years through the desert, which they mapped that out, and it should have only taken like 6. The path that they took should not have taken 40 years for them to get to.
And you think that they just got lost repeatedly because they were on drugs?
Or, I mean, you got that many fucking Hebrews and shit following you, they're gonna be slowed down constantly. Oh, it's so hot, it's so dusty, we're hungry, we're thirsty. Because it's also funny, because if you look at the book of Leviticus, it starts out as this weird kind of cookbook where you're told how to properly sacrifice animals and whatnot to God, but then it whole diverts into this fucking whole, now homosexuality is a sin. A man should not lay with another man. Which that was rewritten. Because originally it was a man's not supposed to lay with a boy, not child, a boy. And that was put in because of the Greek occupation of the time. And the Jews were like, that's not right. You shouldn't be fucking little boys. Little girls is fine. Because once they reach, womanhood, which they determine once a young girl starts having their period, she has achieved womanhood, and you can start breeding.
Which we don't agree with. Just to be clear, we don't agree with that either.
You're obviously a better fucking source for this, but generally little girls start their period around what?
I started mine when I was 11, and that's pretty average. But they're starting earlier and earlier these days. But yeah, normally like you're 10, 11, something like that.
Right, let's do from age range of sickening, but from 8 to 13.
That's probably pretty average.
So, everybody out there that thinks it's okay for grown-ass men to fuck little girls from the age of 13 so that they can have children is, in my mind, a sick fuck.
I will agree to that. I will definitely fucking agree to that. I think that, we should let people grow up and have age-appropriate relationships.
We go back because early humans obviously didn't give a fuck about this shit, because naturally, when a female goes into heat, it's time to breed. And a man, or male, a boy, hits puberty between the ages of 10 and 13. Boys start puberty around that time. So they're going to start fucking because we're animals. And that's what animals do. And as our brains got bigger and realized that if you wait longer for the female to age, you have a better chance of the children surviving and the woman surviving childbirth. And these are secular thoughts.
So basically, to bring that all in, you're saying that secular thought is that it's not okay to rape children and that you should wait until you're old enough to have sex.
Yeah.
And by old enough to have sex, you don't just mean like physically, you also mean like mentally and emotionally and all that bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can agree with all that.
Because today, we teach kids that yes, your body's going through changes and you're going to want to, do some shit with it. And that's okay, but you're going to need to do things to prevent babies coming out, because the younger you are trying to have babies, the more likely you are to die.
And I don't think that like 13-year-olds should be having sex. Even though your body is technically ready to have sex, I don't think you're, mentally and emotionally, ready to have sex. But I definitely think that like when you're 16 or 17 years old, you're going to want to have sex. And if you want to have sex with your 16 or 17-year-old girlfriend or boyfriend...
But then also going back then, being 16, 17 years old, or 13, 14 years old during those times, you had to grow up a lot faster. And you had to mature a lot fucking faster.
Oh yeah, things were a lot different in ancient times.
Because we were wired constantly for fight or flight, for survival, for procreation. As we got older and were able to, and when agriculture was introduced, and we realized that we didn't have to fuck like rabbits all the time, because, the more we fuck, the more likely we get more babies, despite the fact that, this one's going to die because she's not strong enough for childbirth, even though in the earlier times, during the hunter-gatherer scenarios and whatnot, in our time period, women had sex with a lot of men, and men had sex with a lot of women, to spread as much of the genetic code as possible. That's where it takes a community, it takes a village to raise a child. Because until that child was born, nobody really knew who the father was. Until they came out and started looking like a particular one. And then that's when that particular male stepped up and went, that's my babies. I'm going to take care of them. But it didn't stop that male from also impregnating other women as well.
We'll go back far enough, and yeah.
Because monogamy is still early in the fucking human evolution.
Yeah, but I'm a fan of it.
I think monogamy definitely gives a deeper connection to love and empathy. Well, a deeper connection to love. Empathy, I think, has been a humanistic trait for fucking. When we discovered so many fucking thousands, tens of thousands of years ago, that there was an individual that had broken a bone and survived, which means that community took the time to make sure that individual healed to survive the predators that were around. Because animals generally will let the weak and the broken lag behind to be taken by the predators. We are still, in our evolutionary, in my opinion, we are still tied to that hunter-gatherer mindset, but it has been poisoned with, not necessarily poisoned, let me take that back. It has been, it's being driven away from through higher intelligence. Our brains getting bigger and more advanced into thinking.
You know, to go back a bit, when we were talking about like puberty and whatnot, that reminded me of this interesting talk that I heard, and I'm obviously paraphrasing because I don't remember the talk verbatim, but this man was talking about how humans as a species take, like, there is a evolutionary benefit to keeping people sexually online for reproduction as long as possible, right? And like not living that long after you're sexually taken offline, right? Because then you become a burden to those that are left behind, like from an evolutionary standpoint.
The introduction of grandmothers.
The introduction of grandmothers, yes.
There's
Did you
very
see this?
few mammals that do this. Humans, orcas, and apes.
Yes, so I see that you heard this talk too.
Yes.
It's a fascinating way to think of it because like women on average go offline sexually earlier and stay alive longer than men.
Men, yes. Men can still reproduce well into their 60s and 70s.
Yes, and even now with science,
we can go longer. We can reproduce until we die. Women, once they hit menopause, game over.
Yes, we are sexually and like from a reproductive standpoint taken offline in our, you know, for some of us in our 40s, but for most of us like in our 50s. And yet we live longer. We live longer than men, and we live like into our 70s. Some of us into our 80s and 90s. So we're alive for a long time without the ability to reproduce. And that says something about the importance of the older woman in a society, in a human society.
It's because of knowledge.
Yes.
Because humans are walking libraries.
Yes.
Our knowledge needs to be passed on to the next generations for survival. And there's very few mammals that recognize this. And these mammals that recognize this tend to have a higher intelligence than the rest of them.
Yep. Well, that was fascinating because I'd never really thought of it that way before, but it's true because the purpose is supposedly to reproduce and reproduce as much as one can to further their species. That's what is true for most species, but not so much for humans. And then also we get taken offline at some point and continue to live for a while after that, especially women.
Yeah, the same study that you're talking about, I believe, studied like lions and shit. When female lions are no longer able to reproduce, they go off and die. They just, once the female has reached the point where they can no longer produce, they just go off and die. Because in their brain, they're like, I'm done. I'm no longer useful.
And when you're no longer of use, you're a burden to your species. Women aren't a burden to the human species. past reproductive age.
Except through the knowledge that they can pass on.
As I'm saying, we're useful. We're not useless.
You're valuable.
Yeah. We serve a purpose past reproductive age, which is rare in animals. And we are animals. We may be more intelligent animals. We may be animals that have reached sentience, but we're animals. Or reached a level of sentience, let me put it that way.
I think the sentience is the understanding of death, of their own mortality. Because technically speaking, our dogs, when we neuter, spay, and shit like that, their brain goes, we can't produce anymore. So what's the point? But we have genetically engineered our dogs to be companions. We've given them a purpose, to be vessels of love. To them, they're just like, oh, okay, I'm just waiting to die.
And again, to be clear, we are a household that believes in spaying and neutering your pets because there's a pet overload in fucking the world, but in America. And
even though I think we should just develop a fucking birth control for dogs.
I do think that it would be better if there was a different way to keep animals from reproducing than
mutilating them. Because spaying and neutering dogs is no different than castrating a human or cutting off a woman's clitoris.
Well, it's different than cutting off a woman's clitoris. It's more like giving her a full hysterectomy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's like taking a fucking little girl as soon as that uterus is developed enough, just yanking that shit out. Because I believe if we started doing that, if we just started yanking the uteruses out of fucking women at an early age, women would start changing. I think they'd be less caring, less nurturing. They'd be more ruthless and more merciless. But the idea of giving life, for most women, brings them a gratification, a purpose, a meaning. And if you take that away, you're going to create fucking psychopaths and sociopaths.
I don't know that that's true, because I don't think that all women who don't want children, like, they don't have that drive. I don't think they're sociopaths or psychopaths. So I don't think that taking away the drive to procreate is going to turn women into psychopaths or sociopaths. But, yeah. I do think it would probably change women on an evolutionary scale, though.